being an entrepreneur is one of the greatest self-growth journeys that you can go on. It very much mirrors what is happening in your personal life. And so when I started to go on this journey and I started to experience the world of transformation, self-growth, and bring more awareness into my own body, I started to use different things while I was running these events. And so it really started with just implementing and asking questions of myself. The events that I love to be a part of can be very deep, where they're asking deep questions to the audience, and there's a lot of emotion, and it's a really sacred space. And for me to be involved in that, I don't want to disconnect myself. So I want to be as involved as possible. So I learned that that's going to take me to be able to regulate my nervous system. And so I was like, what am I feeling? Why do I feel triggered by this person sharing this one thing? Why is this happening? Is it because of dehydration, or am I just like, is this bringing up past trauma? I don't know. So I have to dive deeper into
Too much
this.
coffee.
Too much coffee? Am I just wired? Exactly. Is it no sleep at the event life? So yeah, it was really about asking questions. And so as I dove into asking those questions of myself, I've now gotten to the place where everything that I've now been doing intuitively for years, I'm starting to build into a system.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is Anka Trifan, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Welcome to another episode of Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible technical planning and practical advice for anyone in the event industry. This podcast is brought to you by Trifan Events, and I'm your host, Anka Trifan. With me on the show today, I have Andrew Ibarra, and he mentioned that I needed to roll my R's, and don't get me started because Romanians certainly roll their R's very longly. And it's just my pleasure to have him on the show with me. Andrew brings 15 years of experience in the audiovisual industry. He's been working with grassroots organizations and billion-dollar companies like CBS, PayPal, and Facebook alike. And after years of studying transformational enrollment events from all angles, he now specializes in helping transformational leaders rock their events with seamless event tech, whether it's live, virtual, or hybrid. Andrew has helped his clients create consistent 6 and 7 figure events and grow their impact globally. His specialty is creating unique event experiences using a clear event vision process, aligned preparation, and fluid execution, which we're going to learn more about. So the experience is co-created, goal-oriented, and all with a brand essence and all with your brand essence being amplified. You can learn more about Andrew in the episode notes, but in the meantime, let's bring him in. Welcome to the show, Andrew. How did I do with my R over there?
Amazing. Better than so many others. So thank you so much. I felt honored on the deepest level.
Oh, I'm so happy to make you feel seen. And maybe we shouldn't start a contest who can roll their R's the longest, because I don't know if that's if we're going to get to our topic of conversation at that point anymore.
Yeah, we'll see how many we can get to by the end of the show.
There you go. Well, we met a few months ago, I feel like, on an event that we worked together. And let me tell you, I've worked with many event production companies and teams and guys, and I just loved your mindful and thoughtful approach to the whole event experience, not just the job that needed to be done, but also the way we approach the job, the wholeness of the experience, the way we show up for that. And I loved when you wanted us to take a moment, center ourselves emotionally and mentally before taking on whatever tasks that we were all doing. So before we get into the whole background of where does this awareness come from of this whole body experience, and not just for people that present and are on stage, but also for the behind the scenes people, right? Like the tech team that many times that's not necessarily necessarily a focus of many, if non AV teams out there until I met your approach to that. And I want to hear more about it. So before we dive into that, and I'd love for you to touch on it as well. But first, let's give our audience a bit of a background on your journey into AV event productions, your DJing yourself into the event production field, and what got you to be here and what keeps you here.
First of all, yeah, I'm just honored to be here. Thank you again for having me on the show. It's just amazing to work with you in person on that event. And yeah, absolutely would love to share more. So my journey started a little over 15 years ago now. I was just in high school and I was attending a small church at the time, and the church was upcoming grassroots and they needed a sound person to, as they grew, to just have their 2-instrument band. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll kind of teach myself. So throw me in there, coach. And they gave me like 2 CD players and a small analog mixer. And I pushed buttons, for a couple of years until I figured it out. And so that was a little bit of the start of my career. Little did I know then, I thought it was just kind of something I was just doing on the side. But after I graduated high school, I DJ'd to get through college. My uncle owned a DJ company in the Bay Area. He introduced me and kind of let me loose, and that's where I started doing all sorts. I was very hungry at the time, so I did weddings and fashion shows and clubs and bars and you name it. I was kind of just loved learning to get my hands on different sorts of events. And that led me then to like Silicon Valley, where I started getting into more tech and kind of introducing the two worlds together, where I was merging the music with audiovisual skills and had some amazing mentors. But yeah, I'm all self-taught, did a little bit of everything from doing video work, videography, to production and acting as a tech director, and then now to owning my own company. So it's been quite the journey. I've gotten to experience a lot and it's been a lot of fun.
I love it. One of my, I would call main mentor in AV productions, he's in his 60s, but basically has a bit of your journey, self-taught, DJ, built his own company. And to this day, we keep in touch. He's from Southern California, actually. And we still connect on the same things that we did like 20 years ago when I first started. I was new and upcoming and hungry, just like you, learning everything from the ground up. And I love that he did have a similar approach to introducing music into all the events that he did. So I think there's something to that. We're going to talk more about it and the ways that you do the events and how is music being kept at the forefront of that particular event design. Before we do that, let's go back to that awareness, that mentality of whole body experience before we even tackle any technical production event that we need to all work on, from behind the scenes to the front of scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, where it really started was just being an entrepreneur. I know that being an entrepreneur is one of the greatest self-growth journeys that you can go on. It very much mirrors what is happening in your personal life. And so when I started to go on this journey and I started to experience the world of transformation, self-growth, and bring more awareness into my own body, I started to use different things while I was running these events. And so it really started with just implementing and asking questions of myself. The events that I love to be a part of can be very deep, where they're asking deep questions to the audience, and there's a lot of emotion, and it's a really sacred space. And for me to be involved in that, I don't want to disconnect myself. So I want to be as involved as possible. So I learned that that's going to take me to be able to regulate my nervous system. And so I was like, what am I feeling? Why do I feel triggered by this person sharing this one thing? Why is this happening? Is it because of dehydration, or am I just like, is this bringing up past trauma? I don't know. So I have to dive deeper into
Too much
this.
coffee.
Too much coffee? Am I just wired? Exactly. Is it no sleep at the event life? So yeah, it was really about asking questions. And so as I dove into asking those questions of myself, I've now gotten to the place where everything that I've now been doing intuitively for years, I'm starting to build into a system. And so that's what you got to experience a little bit of beforehand. Is I want all of our technicians and our entire team to have some of the tools that I've learned to be able to regulate themselves during the event, and to be able to take a step back and breathe and just be for a couple seconds. And what that does is that really allows us as a team to be really involved with what's going on in the room and be able to connect with the participants, feel what they're feeling, connect with the speaker without needing to disconnect and be like, okay, I'm just in work mode, but really be kind of involved. And so that's, what we got to do together when we were on site, which was amazing, just being in sync with you, and being able to flow as we kind of did.
Absolutely. And that was quite a completely brand new experience for me, to be honest, because like you said, in most cases, you go to do the event and you're in work mode, you're focused on the task that you need to do. And I remember being part of this event at one of I think it was a dinner or something, and the attendees were commingling with us, the event crew, because they really wanted us to be part of the event, and which was very nice, and asking me, so how are you feeling right now? And I'm like, what what am I feeling right now? I don't know. I had to take a moment to really, think about it. I'm like, okay, so what am I feeling right now? Okay, give me a moment to tap into those feelings, because in most cases, like you said, you're in one mind and just track mind to keep at what you need to do without necessarily connecting to what's happening around you, so that you're kind of separating, like you said, from that experience. And sometimes that can be a tactic for many people, especially if they're part of events that are emotionally charged. Somehow, I guess you've done enough of those to know that you can't fight it. And if you can't fight it, maybe join them.
Yeah,
So that was
surrender. You got to
beautiful.
surrender to it sometimes. Yeah.
For sure. Well, as a well-rounded event professional, as you mentioned, because, from participating at events to being a speaker to running your own event to running a team behind the scenes and doing all the things, I have an inkling that you have a pretty strong understanding of all aspects of an event. And you have used this knowledge in unique ways to help brands create experiences for their attendees that fully represent them and allows for the events to always be at the center of the event experience. What are some key ingredients part of this clear event vision process that you mentioned and aligned preparation for achieving a fluid execution of the event goals?
Yeah, absolutely. This is my baby as well. I've put in so much care into this process that I love it so much because of the results that it gives our clients and also the way that we get to connect and be a part of the team that is our clients. We merge into one, which is a beautiful thing. So it does start with the vision. So we start our process with the vision, and that is kind of where it begins. We map out where our clients want to go. What is the experience that they want to create for the participants? What are the monetary event goals? What are the emotions that we want to evoke? What are the actions that we want people to take afterwards? And we start from that place. So we start with the end. What's the vision? And then we can go deeper. What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to smell like? What do we want it to feel like? And from there, we can start to make decisions of like, okay, now we know how much, what my speaker system needs to look like. Now we know how big our screens need to be, right? Some of those tech details I can make decisions on based on the vision that our clients are co-creating with us. So that's the first thing. And then the aligned preparation is also us meeting regularly. So we have specific meetings that we do with the team. You got to be a part of those, a few of those as well, where we're going through line by line, we're going through the details. We also do one that's a branded call. So we do a whole call just on branding, which is a lot of fun because we get to dive into them and why did they start their business and what are the pieces of their brand? What are the moods? What are the emotions that they want people to think about when they think about their brand? And we dive into the graphics and we dive into music at that point, which is what, I like to come in and have some fun with and really pull apart and start to create this vision for them that's their brand essence in event form, I like to say. So that is a little bit about just a few pieces of our process that we have with our clients. And what it does is it creates then really the experience, like it puts the experience over the top. People walk into the event and they say, wow, this is really well thought out and I feel at home here.
I love it. I love that you have such proper names for those processes.
My marketing brain. Yeah.
There you go. It actually perfectly makes sense. I mean, we all have been part of pre-event production meetings, but calling it aligned preparation, that's like taking it to the next level, right? Where actually it is all about aligned preparation, being in alignment with the client, with all the teams involved in this process to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I love that you have titles for it. So that's fabulous. Now, before we move forward, let's touch a little bit on this music, the music aspect. First off, that's my favorite part because I have radio background. I used to be a DJ, but in a radio context. I wouldn't call myself a DJ, in a club. I think one of the things that I would always get so frustrated about is when I mix sound and I'm at front of house, people treat you as a DJ. And I'm like, I am not a DJ. Don't ask me to play this and that because that's not the tools that I have at hand, nor do I want to make those decisions because those are hard decisions. Like picking music and right choices of music for anything is hard. So I would love to hear more of your process into how, as we know, music affects us emotionally and even biologically. How have you applied this knowledge practically as it relates to designing event experiences with music at the forefront?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because, no matter what, technicians are always going to get requests at the back of the room, right? It's just part of kind of the experience. But
The difference
I
is
love that.
you actually are ready for them.
Exactly. I'm like, little do you know that song is on cue next. So, go hit the dance floor. I got you. So yeah, it really, like I said before, it starts with that brand essence, and a lot of the preparation that I do is around music. So that sets me up in a way where I can bring music in, and I prepare what I call a branded soundtrack into the event, where it's basically a bunch of playlists for each activity that are aligned with what's going to be happening and their brand essence, the moods that we want to set, the emotions, and all coming from that place. Yeah, you said it. The reason I do that is music is so essential to us as human beings. We are tapped into music on a biological, on an emotional, and I would even say on a spiritual level. I remember I read a story where a bone flute was dug up, and it was, I believe, 30,000 years old. To think about the context of that, in relation to everything, it means like since we were able to make instruments before even civilizations were formed, when we were still a species that was, nomads and hunter-gatherer, that we were listening to music and creating music even in those early eras. And so ever since then, every culture that we've been able to track has had some sort of music in their culture. And so it's really ingrained in us to have music as a tool for all sorts of things. It's also connected to us biologically. We have two sensors in our ear that help us to receive sound waves. One of them specifically is meant for speech and sounds. The other one is specifically picks up rhythm. So it notices rhythms that are happening. It's almost like when you're listening to something and all of a sudden you hear like someone taps on a desk, in a way, and you're like, it literally triggers a different part of your brain. And so we've been kind of wired for that as well. And then emotionally, we all have those favorite songs that I'm sure you could think of, whether it was a wedding song or a song from way back in the day, and you're like, that's my jam, and it just like lights you up. Or like
I feel like sometimes we all have like a genre that really spoke to us during a very highly emotional season in our life. And now we're so connected to that. Like I can always go back to the 90s.
90s was
For
genre
me was the rock ballads and some EDM, and because I was, at the time that was my time when I was in the radio, and especially slow ballads, rock ballads. Even to this day, like I have my playlist when I need to tap into those emotions. That's what I will listen to when I go to the gym or whatever. Or other times I stay away from that because I don't want to tap into those emotions, and then I have to play something else that's gonna, get me into a different headspace. And it's so important, like you said, emotionally. I feel like for me, there's such a connection. Like I speak through music many times. Like I would send a song to my husband because I intend to say something that I can't find words for. But if I send him the song, then I know he's going to get it. Right. So it's like we speak through music many times, like even if we know it or not. If you're more attuned to it, probably you realize that you have, something that you want to say, and you're going to use this either track or playlist or whatever it is. And you're right, like bringing that into the event really elevates the experience, because now those playlists that you created speak to that particular brand and theme or whatever the event was. But the audience, whenever they're going to listen to those songs again, it's going to trigger some of those memories. It's going to trigger some of the information that was shared. So it's all like all brainiac talk, right? But it's so true. And I love that you're going even back into the neurological effects and how it all makes sense and why does it all make sense.
Yeah, I really dove a lot into that because I was so curious. Like, why is this song making me cry right now? I need to know. And I'm like, so I have the same kind of playlist and my gym playlist that just like seems to give us energy, right? That's like, let's fucking go. So yeah, it's all very intentional, and we can either be, gosh, there's also this incredibly interesting story or study that was done that's around music, where it was a study done in a wine shop. And in this wine shop, they decided to play different musics in the wine shop to see if that would result in different results for wine being sold. And so for the first week, they played pop music in the wine shop and, recorded all of the sales to see what would happen. And then the next week after that, they played classical music, and they played that for a week, recorded all of the sales, and the results were pretty interesting. So they found that they didn't necessarily have an increase in the number of wine that was sold, but they did have a different ratio between the more expensive bottles of wine for classical music. And so things like that are so interesting to me. I was like, why is that? Mostly what happened, I think, was people walked into the wine shop and they heard pop music. It's just kind of another day. They hear pop music probably all the time, but the classical music evoked some sort of emotion in them, some sort of status, some sort of like where their mind went to another place. And it's like, ooh, maybe I'll go for this, feeling kind of top shelf today. How about you? Let's grab this top shelf bottle of wine. I'm feeling real fancy. I don't know why, but
you know what? That's so fascinating. And it reminds me of a event that, I don't know if you know of Tahira and Dean. They were running the same type of experiment with intentional event design, pairing music and songs to wine tastings. So they had all this like quiet headphones and took people on a wine tour and were playing different songs with different wines. They didn't know what was in the cup. So you'd be tasting this new wine and then there would be a different song playing. And they would ask the attendee to rate the wine based on the music that was played. And it was so interesting to see how everybody had a different, like if this was a Merlot, you think it all tastes the same. No. According to the music that was played, it would have come up in their experiment and their results as a totally different taste. And it was all based on like the connection to the music that was played. And it was so fascinating. And it's a little bit of what you just said.
Yeah, where it changes, it literally will change the neurons that are firing in different directions. So it's incredibly powerful. So I love to use that intentionally to bring a more powerful event into fruition. So that's the reason why I bring a DJ mixer to every event that I do, regardless. It's like I want to be able to continue to flow and to control the energy in the room with the music, because I know how powerful it is. There's dead energy, then that stops the energy in the room. So if there's dead air, then that means there's dead energy. And so I want to continue to keep the mood, the emotions, everything flowing, no matter where on the roller coaster we are, just in doing it intentionally. It's a beautiful tool to have.
I love how you paired your DJ experience to the AV production experience, because again, someone like me, I love music. I was a DJ in radio, but I don't have the wealth of knowledge of someone that would be spinning and mixing DJing in an actual club or anyone else for that matter, where you can just probably at the tip of your mind is like, oh, this song is perfect for this moment. And you just go and it's like, bring it up. I saw you doing it on an instance. Like, even though the playlist might have looked this way, you're like on the, spur of a moment, you're like, oh, I think I thought of a different song because we're feeling this or we're feeling that. And let's bring that into the design. So fabulous. I love that. And kudos to you for doing it. Whereas I'm more like, don't ask me, go and ask the DJ.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's great because that's one of the things that we plan for too. It's like I do all this preparation for events and I create the branded soundtrack, but then, you get on site and you're like, wow, this feels just I can feel that it's different, that we need to go a different direction. So that's where kind of the flow begins. And I'm like, yeah, I can feel that a different energy is needed. And I don't always take requests, right? Sometimes it's like, yeah, that's not where we want to go. And typically not that type of DJ unless it's like a party
Exactly.
and we're dancing and we're having fun. But during the event itself,
It's
yeah,
more
very much.
structured.
It's a little bit more structured. Yeah. But
Exactly.
even within that, even within the structure, there's room for the flow.
Right. Before we move on to some of the tactical tips to pivoting events well, and that's where we go more into the structure and the flow that you just mentioned, let's tackle a do or die practice in our industry. And it's beginning of the year and we all, want to fill up our pipeline. So obviously networking and relationship building is the first thing that should be on our minds, because honestly, I don't know any event professional out there that has been able to reach any level of success without engaging in some networking and relationship building activities. So in order to make this more of a tactical point, what would your advice be to what is the main focus, or what should be the main focus or objective of intentional networking and relationship building?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, there are so many different tactics and strategies out there. So, really, you could kind of take that in any direction, but I'll just share a couple that have really been impactful for me. And so, the first is to be really specific with our marketing. So, the more niche that you can be, the more that you can specifically speak to that audience. And so, for me, being able to work with thought leaders and transformational leaders, that narrows it down to really who I work with. And so being a part of those circles, yeah, going out and finding where it is that they all meet and getting to know them on a personal level has helped me to thrive within that community. And it really feels great because it feels aligned with where I want to go. And it's not just kind of grasping at straws and going out and doing this random networking thing, but it's very intentional with where I'm going and why I'm going here. So for me, being intentional with marketing and knowing who your audience is, the more specific you can be, the more you can be a pro in that one thing. And so that'll help you stand out to that one type of person. And it may not speak to everybody out there, but there's so much room for all of us to thrive that when you pick something specific, people can refer you and you can refer other people like, oh, I know someone who's great at that particular type of event. Let me refer you that way. So that's one thing, was getting real specific, and all the other tools then can be used kind of based around that. The other thing, the podcast is Events Demystified. So, I'm sure you talk to all these event people, is event people love event people, right? So I love to attend events as much as possible. So, you read my bio, and I've been a participant at events. So I go to events when I'm not running events. I love to go and I love to be a participant. So not only does it put me in the seat of the participant where I can experience and learn new things, but I get to meet other event professionals who love events as well. And so those two things, I think, together have been really impactful for me to be able to reach out, be of support to other people, to make connections and to grow our company and to just have fun doing it.
And be the go-to person for that one particular audience, as you mentioned, because of this very unique niche that you are aligning yourself with, because it's where you want to be. And I love those tips. They're excellent, because a lot of us, like you said, sometimes you just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Sure, that can be a strategy. But probably going a little bit more intentional and a little bit more strategic is going to pay better in the long term. So that's exactly what you're talking about. And those are great points. Now, Andrew, before we move on and talk a little bit more about pivoting events well and flowing with the structure of events, let's take a quick moment to acknowledge our podcast sponsor and supporter. And we'll be right back with our feature guest to continue our conversation. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifun Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifunevents.com. Coming back to our conversation with our featured guest today, Andrew Ibarra, audiovisual wizard, international speaker, and live event expert. And changing tracks just a little bit here for a moment, here's a bonus question for you, Andrew. Have you ever found yourself needing to achieve high value with limited resources sometimes? And if so, what are some common misconceptions maybe that people have about being industrious and resourceful, especially in our AV production industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had plenty of times building the company from the ground up, really gaff taping things together in the beginning. And
Literally at times.
literally and figuratively. Yes, exactly. So yeah, I've definitely had experience with piecing things together and getting creative with, sometimes limited resources. So a few things that I can say about that. One is anything is doable, anything is figure outable. So I love to use that as a mantra. I'm like, okay, there's the vision. Let's work from the vision backwards and we'll figure it out from there. So that has been number one for me. And
I think you just came up with a new word. Figure out. What did you call that?
figure outable. Yeah.
Does that even
It is.
exist?
It should be. Contact Oxford Dictionary and
I
let them
love
know.
it. I love it. I'm sorry, continue. I
Yeah,
thought I need to pick up on that because I need to use that word now.
Yes, I can't take credit for that. I don't know where I heard it, but I just fell in love with it. It really just rang true for me that, everything can be figured out on some level. So piecing things together where we need to. And so for one of the things that helps me to do that is to be clear on profit margins. So that's been one thing that the team has supported me with, is getting clear on like, where do we have room, where are our costs, and to see where things are actually coming in, where our higher expenses are, and where can we be a little bit more creative. Instead of renting panels or these drape, what if we were to invest in them instead? What if the client were to invest in them, since they have multiple events per year, and we can kind of work that out and showing them what the profit would be on that. So things like that. And then also there may be some sort of nonprofit who is short on funds, or if they're a solopreneur who is really just getting their business off of the ground and we have an aligned vision, we feel connected and we want to be of support, then we can offer certain discounts and certain ways to get creative there, but only after we know like where our profit margins are, and then we can get creative with how would we be able to give back in a way where it's a win-win for everyone.
I love that. Now, to our next topic, Andrew, a topic you find yourself becoming an expert at. What are some then do's and don'ts of planning to flow well at events?
Yes, love this. So planning to flow, right? It's such an interesting phrase. It starts with the planning process. So when we plan, we are very detail oriented around everything that's happening. So I've had clients come back to me and say, do we really need to be this structured? Like, do we really need every single thing to be line itemed? And come back with, we don't have to follow this. If that's what you're worried about, we can plan to go off of the script, but it's great to have that as a foundation. So having the structure in place where we know what's happening, we know who's supposed to be where, we know the roles and responsibilities of not only our team, but their team. So that way we know who to go to for certain questions. Then we are able to make decisions on the fly based on, the fact that we feel really comfortable that we have the structure in place to make that happen. So preparing ourselves with all of the details beforehand allows us to feel really confident and be like, okay, I see they're not sticking to the script, but we're okay because we know we have our pieces in place. They want to go back to this video that they missed, that they never called for, then we have it ready just in case, and we know exactly where it is. For me, they're like, if they're on stage and they say, okay, we're going to switch the energy up, random dance party, I have my dance playlist already planned because we talked about that could be something that happened. So planning before the event, preparing for all of those little things allows us to flow when we're on site. Yeah, that also means the team is confident too to make decisions. When we've talked about and I've went over the event goal with the entire team, then everyone is aligned with that event goal. We know where we're acting from. We know the event experience we want to create. So then I really can empower our team to make decisions, flow, have some fun with it, throw in some fun graphics whenever you see fit. And, for me, play music, throw sound effects in here and there and have fun with it because we're acting from the same place that the client is. And that makes it a little bit more of an organic experience.
Just kidding.
Just like that.
Just like that, I had to do it. No, that was great. That's the only applause that I have.
Yeah, but that's it. That's planning for flow, right? That's it right there.
That's my DJ skills coming into play. I'm kidding. Now, piggybacking on this previous question, what is then your favorite part of an event?
My favorite part of an event is the people, is the souls in the room. Gosh, it's just so meaningful for me when I get to be around that energy, to see the people, whether it's, they're on Zoom and you can see them and you're waving to them on the screens, or you're in person with them and you can just feel them and you can see how impactful each event is for each person. Like, it really means a lot to me. And it's my favorite part, is to see people lit up, is to see the emotions, is to see the transformation that happens throughout a weekend or a day. It's truly just never ceases to just blow my mind how impactful that is for me, for my own life, for the team, and then how that ripples, out. You can see that person's life has now changes, and they're going to change the life of their world and their family, which is going to impact their community. I'm a big believer in the power of events, and getting to see the souls in the room and witnessing that reminds me of what we're doing, why we're doing this in the first place, and what it really means. It lights me up.
That's the most beautiful answer ever, because I thought you're going to say the music, the flow, I don't know, the coffee, the candy, the experience. But
Right.
no, you had to go somewhere
Not having to
so
make my
deep.
bed.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I know you had to go somewhere so deep that now I'm like, how am I going to work my way back into the next question? Because I don't have anything so deep to say. So I'm just going to jump on there. So we'll see what happens. Now, because you have, and we all have worked in AV for a minute, this next topic is probably not where you were going, but it is about the people. It is about the people. So it's not really news to me or you how, on the production side of events, there are some changes that have been implemented, but they're still to be desired and happen as far as diversity, inclusion, representation. And those are some of the challenges that many women specifically that work in the AV industry face. And while we have, again, made some strides in the right direction, there's still a lot of work to be done. Knowing how strong of an ally you are to women in AV, women in event productions, I know that you see us. So in light of it, what can be done from your perspective to change the current status quo and give more opportunities to women to embrace more technical, heavy roles in events, or make it attractive to more women to flourish in a production heavy field?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I am a big believer in bringing some equality and giving opportunity to all people. I specifically work a lot of events, and some of the events we work, they like to request an all-female crew. And so that was, why we're connected, and it's beautiful. And it's something I've been doing for years, is creating all-female crews. I've actually been kicked out of a couple of Facebook groups because of that, because it's so interesting how in itself, it's almost its own version of inequality, right? When you start to do things like that.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's very funny looking back at it now. Yes. So definitely, I'm a big believer in we all have our own special talents as well. So lean into where you shine and let that shine. There are a lot of people, me included, back in the day, that just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to kind of be a cog in the machine and just see where I could kind of fit in. But my perspective is that the more that you can shine, the more that you can focus on what it really is that lights you up, the more it is that when you can hone in your gifts and give those to the world, and especially in tech, whatever way that lights you up and brings you to life, like people will recognize that. And there are others like me who will see that and say, there's something special there. I want this as a part of what I do. I want this as a part of my team going forward. And so rather than just trying to fit in, trying to almost like put on just this, fit into this masculine role, like I think it's beautiful. I think the women bringing their gifts into tech is a beautiful thing in its own. And look at your background. Your background is beautiful, and like who you are, your essence just shines. Like you being on site, it's its own gift. So the more that you lean into that, I feel like that's really what the industry needs more of. And so I'm a big believer in that, letting that shine through, and there's no stopping that kind of force.
I love that. And as far as my background goes, I try to match the colors to what you have going on. So there we go. We're on the same energy level.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, piggybacking on this question that we just tackled, and that was a beautiful answer. What are some of the maybe unknown opportunities for not just women, but people that don't always feel like they belong in this field if they do want to pursue a career in our field?
Yeah, one of the easiest ways is to create something for yourself. I'm a big believer in creating something for you. And there's going to be opportunities, but finding something that you love to do and building that yourself is going to not only teach you more about yourself, but help you with where you want to go. And so like you've created this podcast, which is incredible. You get to create and meet amazing people. And so like that's your avenue. And so for others, like whatever that avenue looks like, whether it's a TikTok page or a YouTube page or a podcast or a company, find something that you really want to invest your time in and build something for yourself, empower yourself so that you're not 100% reliant on just going gig to gig, but you're managing that where you can still be at a place where you're working with other people and you're collaborating, but you're also building something for yourself, and that will support in the long run. And that's what I believe is, going to connect you with your tribe and who you're meant to work with.
I love that. And there's a place there to actually engage some of your creative skills. I feel like a lot of us AV techs and AV production people, we're, really good at thinking logically through the steps and making things happen from a logical, technical point of view. But there's so much creativity that can be infused into that process if you allow yourself to explore some of that within yourself. And many times when I feel like I'm straight up out of creative juices flowing through me is because I expanded myself too much into places that I need to pull myself back just so that I can be creative again. The moment when I'm not, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm like definitely stretching myself more than I should because I can't even think of like a blog title or can't even think of a topic of conversation. I can't even think of a, TikTok Reels idea or something. And I know you have your avenue in which, being a speaker, creating presentation, creating something that comes out of you, that things that you have to say and want to say, that's another creative process. And I agree with you. We should all have some way in which we engage that part of the brain that is not all like logical and sensical and straight up, technical.
Right, 100%. Yeah, because anyone that's drawn to this industry definitely has that sort of, right side of the brain, can think, can look at processes, can work with tech. We're magicians, right? It's a part of what we do. And to balance that out, yes, you're right, with something creative, with something that comes out of you in a natural state, like that's almost too the embodiment piece for me, part of what we do on site, because eventually, like I want to see more of that even on site and brought into the industry where it's not only just a brain activity, but it's a full body activity and all parts of us are firing and supporting. But that's absolutely, like, I think that's beautiful to have that creative outlet to find what that is for you as an individual.
I love that. Well, we're coming to a close here, Andrew. I mean, this conversation, it has been definitely one of my favorites. It's fascinating just to learn more about how you can create this whole body experience, not just in front of the scenes, but behind the scenes in our event teams. So now that we're, in the closing of the episode, but it is is the beginning of a new year, what is one piece of advice that you would like to leave our audience with for anyone out there that either they might want to pursue a career in AV and pro audio and live events, or someone that's out there and just listening and they're trying to figure out how they can fit in within this conversation that we just had? Breathe.
Breathe.
Okay, we gotta do this. We gotta do this from the top because you're so good at it. And I'm like, I'm ready to rush through it.
Yeah, that's so funny. Oh my God.
That was a
Breathing.
perfect example of how you're trying to tune into your body and emotions. And I'm like, but
Right, but you kind of spoke to exactly what it is that I was saying through my body, right? Because for those who are watching or listening with audio only, you didn't get to see me, or maybe I need to breathe into the microphone a little bit closer. But breathing is huge. I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but breath work has absolutely changed my life and helped me to pause where needed. What I was gonna say was embrace the journey. Embrace the journey that you're on and breathe through it. Know that you're not alone. Know that there are others out there that are really supportive and that believe.
I love that. One of the previous episodes that I just recorded with David Stevens, we were talking a whole lot about wellness at events and fitness. And I was sharing one of my experiences in which actually boxed breathing has saved my bacon on one of the event sites when I was put in a situation where I had to figure things out that I just had no knowledge about. And I started freaking out really, really like deeply on that level where you're like, I'm going to tank this show because it's on my shoulders. And everything that's presented in front of me makes no sense whatsoever and does not match the workflow that we talked about. And now what, right? So just to pull yourself back in and allow your brain to stop from that like freak out moment, right? And start with, okay, breathe, and then look at the things that you have and you know, and start there to do that figureoutable journey into the solution. And it worked.
That's beautiful. What a great, testament to that. It can all come back to that. So I love that you were able to bring it back into your body, start there, and then come back with something fresh and
I
move
might have done
forward.
a few push-ups in the process as well to allow my body to really like work out all the anxiety. But that's part of that
Yeah.
episode. Right now we're focusing on the breathing.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Two
before
episode.
exactly before we actually end the episode, would you take us through this guided just breathing moment? And for anyone that is just listening, I advise you to actually watch it, but just be part of it. Just join us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with making sure our feet are flat on the ground. Sitting upright, making sure our posture is straight. And we're just going to take a moment to breathe together. So we're going to put one hand on our belly and one hand on our heart. We're going to breathe in through the nose. And first, you're going to let your belly expand. Now you're going to exhale through your mouth and kind of bring your belly back towards your spine. And on this next inhale, you're going to breathe in through your nose, and this time expand your chest. Exhale through your mouth, and then we're going to go back to your belly. Inhale through your nose, and then exhale. One more time. And then you can start to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and bring yourself back to presence.
I feel so much more relaxed right now, Drew. Thank you.
Isn't that wild? In just a few seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine how many times we're under stress and under pressure on event side. And if we just allowed ourselves, even if it looks awkward sometimes to the outside, right?
Oh
To
yeah,
just
it will
do
look
that,
awkward, but
especially for someone that's not used to it, they're gonna be like, what are you doing? Like, focus on the task. And you're like, that's exactly what I'm doing. I just need to center myself to be able to really then focus on the task. So that's beautiful. Now, as we're finishing this amazing episode, where can our audience connect with you if they want to learn more about what you do and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, please come connect with me if you feel aligned with anything that I spoke about. You can learn more about our productions and working with us at liftedav.com. And then you can connect with me personally on Facebook and Instagram at Andrew C. Ibarra. 2 R's. There's not that many R's. That's just how we pronounce
We
it.
just made it like sound like there's a million of R's there. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing all your insightful tips and everything that you've learned over the years, doing the things that you're passionate about and the things that light your soul on fire and make your light shine. For anyone that has been tuning in and listened to the episode all the way till the end, thank you as well. And I look forward to working with you again, Andrew, and connecting with your team. And for our audience, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to come up with a brand new episode every week on Friday. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Anka. Just honored to be on here. Thank you for creating the platform. Just so glad that our world's connected and looking forward to partnering with you for a long time to come.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about 3FAN Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.